When we lived in Montana, in Moccasin, there was an incident where one of the high school girls had become pregnant. And the young man, he was 18 and she was 17, so it was statutory rape, and it was a big deal. It was a real small town. And the kid disappeared, I guess, out of for his own safety. And a lot of the townspeople wanted the girl to go away also. And Dad didn't think that was right. His argument was that legally she was entitled to the best education that she could get, and since she was a student and he ran the school, that she was kind of his responsibility, and since she obviously had the best school, that she should stay there and finish her senior year, I guess. And that was really not popular in that small town. And after a while, the family started getting some veiled and then not so veiled threats from people. And so the story goes is that Dad called a board meeting, and when everyone was in there and sat down, he pulled a pistol out of his kidney holster and set it on the table, and gave a short dissertation on the virtues of right and wrong, and the consequences for whichever path you decide to take. I heard something about him allowing that he'd never met anyone who could outrun a 38. And you can argue with his methods, but I'll guarantee you everyone in that room had a real clear idea of his version of right and wrong. And the threat stopped, so. When I grew up, and I think with most children, it's kind of the same. When you were a young child, and your first clear memories, you think of your parents as these all-powerful, omnipotent beings that tend to your every need and have absolute control over your whole life and everything you do. And as you begin to grow up, you start to realize that, well, okay, they are actually human beings, but they still, they're all-powerful and pretty close to perfect and so on and so forth. And then sooner or later you find out that, no, that's really not true either, that they're just people. And I remember when I found that out about Dad, we'd gone on a hunting trip to the Eulogy, and it was Dad and me, and he took along an old hunting buddy and his boy. His buddy was a preacher, a Lutheran preacher. An old friend who was a Lutheran preacher. At any rate, we went one way, and the other guys went the other way. And Dad and I were crunching up this frozen trail and just kind of skulking along, and you could hear every footstep on cornflakes, and it was just still and cold, and all of a sudden, plooey, this buck and his little harem just exploded out of the tree line and shot across this clearing. And I mean, I was just stunned. I just stood there like an idiot, and Dad immediately, he had a .270 Winchester, and he had that sucker swung up in his shooting stance, and he was leading that buck, and they disappeared behind a little thicket. And when that first deer he came, he touched one off, and everything was just in slow motion, and it was just poetry. The shot was just perfect, and that lead deer just dropped like a bag of hammers. And I think we both realized at that same instant that it was a wrong deer. And the rest arrow just went sailing over this deer, and the last one was that buck, and they were gone. And I don't really even recall us even saying anything as we walked up, and we field dressed it, and the time we were doing this, it's the only time I clearly remember Dad just weeping openly. And it wasn't just because he shot a doe, because we shot many does, but this was the wrong deer, and there was nothing he could do about it. It just, he was absolutely crushed. Just, and that's when I knew that he's subject to screw-ups just like anyone else. And I kind of patterned my learning curve for the next 7 years. But later, after we broke in camp, he and the preacher went back and retrieved that deer from where we hung it up under the tree and brought it home, because it would have been more wrong to let it go to waste. He really did have a great life, and I'm just really gonna miss him. But I don't want to get too sad. I think, well, what a terrific life he really had. I mean, he lived a long, full life. He got to see and do all kinds of fascinating things. Had a ball doing it, you know. Had a great impact on the people he met, and you know, what's not to like. He reminds me of the character out of Lake Woebegone, you know, where he was strong, and no, he was good looking, and his woman was strong, and his children were all above average. No, that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And